Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. We are getting into the final stretch of the winter 2023 season. It was a little weird this episode because we're right on the border of where we would normally do our season preview, but it's still like a couple days too early the way the timing all goes. So we're gonna be talking about our normal shows and a couple other things. So we had some games we want to talk about. There's a new Sentai show out, all kinds of things going on. So we got a lot to talk about. So to introduce everybody, I'm Jel, joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Hanging in there, still with us. We're joined by G.
I thought Iro was going to do it, so I guess I'll have to do it. Fuck Ben Franklin. All my homies hate Ben Franklin.
Yes. Us Americans are suffering from the terrible effects of daylight saving time jumping forward. Forgive the lack of energy in my voice.
Yes, apologies if 3/4 of this podcast sound half dead.
Yes, that 1 hour is really killing us here, folks. Big difference.
It might be the hangover.
Well, multiple factors. And we are joined by Zig.
I'm from the future. Actually, I'm technically always from the future.
Yes, you are always from the future.
Yes, you're.
I'm actually from slightly less in the future at the moment.
Yeah.
Since the clocks have not changed here, so our time gap is reduced.
When is that? Next
hour.
week? 2 weeks?
I think it's 2 weeks normally.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So in our weird.
I'm gonna have to figure out D&D scheduling. Anyway.
Yes, that's our problem for another day. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And like I mentioned, there's a couple of anime adjacent games we have been playing that I know at least I've been burning to talk about. We referenced this a little bit last episode. And Iro, you actually wrote a review of a certain visual novel that has been a long time coming to English speaking, officially anyway, English speaking audience.
The Type of Moon visual novel, Witch on the Holy Night, aka Mahotsukai no Yoru, aka Mahoyo, which came out in 2012. So
it's weird because, like, in my head, I still go, "Oh, that's the new game from Type Moon."
Right?
Is that the last VN they ever did?
There's that
the Tsukihime remake came out 2 years ago, or in 2021.
Oh, did it?
Well,
the first half of the Tsukihime remake.
Okay.
Point is,
it's the last like brand new one though. Like that's
yeah. There's a lot of asterisks attached to that statement. So
okay, fair enough.
This came out in 2012, with no voices or anything. It's just a pure visual novel. There's no choices. You just go, and it's the story. And they re-released it at the end of 2022 with voice work, because they're also going to have a movie version that's supposed to come out this year. Who knows if that's happening? But
is that a UFO table join?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
And it also got released internationally with English.
Amazing.
Wow.
And just to be clear, this is not I imported it from like Singapore or something like that. This is
Akugay got it for me on a regular Amazon for Christmas.
An honest to God American release.
Yes, Amazon. So it's weird because it's the first Type Moon visual novel, main Type Moon visual novel to be localized, right? Like plenty of spin-offs and the animes have come over and such, but not the like main stuff.
We've never had Fate Stay Night. We never had Tsukihime, right?
Nope.
So
we got Melty Blood over here.
Yeah.
Melty Blood transcends language.
Real quick, interesting. You mentioned there's no choices or routes on this. It's just a straight up read it and experience it.
Yep.
Situation.
Yeah, there is a comedy post game chapter that has choices, but that's like not the main story. Right.
So did you go Paragon or Renegade?
I mean, I just played it. Right.
Kick Gluvio out of the air taxi.
Yeah. So how does it feel playing a Type Moon property in 2023? This many years later,
it's bizarre. I wrote about it a bit in my review, but it's like when in the context of 2012, when there just wasn't that much Type Moon stuff, and especially not that much that was translated. This was like seemed way more interesting, but in the context of now, where Grand Order has subsumed everything, right? And it's everything is sort of in service to Grand Order at this point, or at least it feels like it to me. Then this feels like this feels like a weird statement. Like disconnected product, but also that's maybe why it's good and relevant. Maybe, but it just was odd, you know.
I mean, how much connection does it have to any of the other Type Moon stuff?
Not
pretty
much.
Standalone
is the weird thing. It is one of the more standalone ones, I'd say. Which is to say, like, it's characters who appear in it are characters who appear in other things, and they're important there, or not even that important. They're characters show up elsewhere and such.
I mean, it's probably closer to Garden of Sinners than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Which, like, apologies to all of you Garden of Sinners stands out there, but I think it's fair to say it's probably one of the more obscure Type Moon properties at this point.
It's been a long time cult favorite for movies.
Yeah. Right, yeah, but like it has never really kind of escalated beyond being a cult favorite, right? Whereas like Fate at least is mainstream now, and
yes, I would say so.
Tsukuhime's profile has risen in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, because it's about the story of Mahoyo is about Aoko Aozaki, who is a character who is in Melty Blood. Most people know her from Melty Blood, probably. She is a minor character in Tsukihime who kind of shows up for 5 minutes at the start and is like a strange, mysterious person and then leaves, right? And in the deeper lore, she's a very important character, but in ways that don't ever manifest in the main storylines generally. And so the story of Witch on the Holy Night is like her origins, sort of, like how she becomes, like the very earliest part of how she becomes the person who she is.
Right, and this is chronologically the earliest work in the quote unquote Nasuverse, right?
Yes.
If we exclude
in more ways than one.
Right. But like if we exclude all like the flashbacks to like the heroic spirits stuff that happened in history and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Right. Yeah, that stuff yeah. So, yes. My understanding is this takes place chronologically, and also within the meta text of Kinoko Nasu writing things. I believe this is the first thing that he did.
So
and then like he like banged this out, and then was like looked around, tried to get it published, and it didn't really. Nobody picked it up or whatever. But his friends were like, "Well, we can do something with this," and they sort of like branched off from there, right? And formed Type Moon, the Dojin Circle, and started making Garden Sinners and Tsukihime and such.
So does this predate even like Fate Prototype and all that early stuff?
I believe so.
Right, that's interesting.
That's a little up in the air.
Like I think like when you have, creatives, be they directors, artists, musicians, whatever, go back to these kind of like very early formative works and try and kind of bring them into a more evolved form, you can get kind of, I think there's a very wide range of results you can
get. It can go some ways.
Yes.
Yeah, like...
Yes.
On the other hand, Nasu has always been very good at world building and like building those sort of connections between his
Right.
works, and it sounds like the way you say it, it sounds like that even if this thing was not published until 2012, it was always kind of part of the story in his head, so to speak.
Yes. There's like old, in like art books and stuff, the descriptions of these characters were still there and like referenced some of these events, right? Like,
Right.
there's old illustrations from like their website from the late 90s.
Right, back
of these
when they were
characters,
just
right?
like the Dojin Circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
stuff like that. So it's interesting. Gave me some perspective, right? And so, I mean, if you're the kind of person who wants to get into this stuff, start there.
I think,
But also, maybe
Well, but
reconsider.
also,
I don't know. Go
I
ahead.
thought,
I'm
you know,
being silly. Yeah. Go
yeah, it's
ahead.
based on what you've talked about, and certainly taking the text of your review, right? Like,
Mhm.
it does sound like in a lot of ways this is a fairly pressure-free way to learn about the Type Moon setting, right? Because there
Yes.
is not the pressure of, like, because in a lot of ways, right? It's like, even if you watch, like, obviously many of the adaptations of Fate Stay Night are far more accessible than the original game at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to learn the story of UBW, you could just watch UFO Table's UBW TV series, right?
you
but
could
at the
even
end of the
watch
day-
that movie
But
if you hate yourself.
yes, but at the end of the day, right? They are all still sort of beholden to the reality of like, oh, well, this is 1/3 of the story, and that story is itself one part of a grander whole, right?
Yeah.
And like, obviously Tsukihime is, at least for us Western, players, not really that accessible either, at least not
Mhm.
yet.
Out of
And so-
interest, like, sorry to interrupt you, but has there ever been a fan translation of Tsukihime? Not the
The
remake,
original,
just like the
the
original.
original, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You say of course, but like it's a pretty major undertaking, obviously.
Right.
So.
They
So-
did that before they translated Fate.
Right, sure.
Right, but yeah, so yeah, I guess in some regards, right, that does in fact make Mahoyo kind of the easy, like, if
Mhm.
if you look at Type Moon as a whole and you go, damn, that's for me.
Yeah,
It seems like Mahoyo is a relatively easier way to get into it.
I would say so.
And also, like, you shouldn't underestimate the power of just being able to go into a shop or click on a website and say,
Yeah.
"Give me the thing." Like,
Right. And that's why, like, you could just go Netflix and watch Fate. Right.
right, but
Uh,
I do wonder, if this is kind of like a toe in the water to see if any of that other
but,
stuff,
like not bringing
Tsukihime
over. No, don't bring over Tsukihime because Mahoyo didn't sell well.
did.
Or
I
something.
mean, right?
Who knows?
But like, but just as kind of like an experiment to see if the
Mm-hmm.
audience is out there. Like, I mean, Tsukihime Remake is the obvious thing to dangle.
Yeah. And I mean,
there,
it's
but-
not like Fate is not popular in the States.
No, absolutely not. And like, I was honestly quite shocked that when you told me that it has never had a Western release. Like, I just assumed it was some sort of like limited time thing that they pulled after a while. But
Yeah,
But
a lot of other VNs have gotten
Mhm.
releases. It's kind of always surprised me that Fate, which actually has a pretty sizable following outside of Japan, has never been touched. But
Yeah, it's just a little bizarre to replay that and have the story just be like, so magic, it's like this. This is how we do it here. This is how the magic works. This is why it works this way, etc., etc. Which is all sort of stuff that like doesn't get fleshed out in that sort of detail
Right,
anywhere
yeah.
else, right?
yeah,
It's just,
like, I mean,
everyone's pieced together.
like, we talk about accessibility, but like, honestly, even the animated adaptations of Fate can occasionally be a bit confusing with some of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
because of course they do not have the sort of context that you can build into like a 150,000 word visual novel. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
it's out there.
so it's good.
Sure, read
Do
my
you enjoy
review.
it? Okay. Yes. We'll point everybody to go to theglorioblog.com and read Iroh's full review for the full
it's a good one.
Mhm.
his full opinions. Yeah. So, all right. I wanted to talk about a game I've been playing. I guess Mahoyo it's questionable whether we would call that a game at this point, but we'll leave it
It's
as
a
it is
game.
here.
Visual novel.
Let's not get into that one.
We're not going to get into that debate here, but yeah. So past couple weeks, I've been playing Labyrinth of Galleria, the Moon Society, now available on PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and Steam.
You've been talking quite a bit about this game.
Yeah, so I consider myself fairly online, but I haven't heard anything about this game aside from you. So give me
Neither
the
did
skinny.
I just happened to randomly see some screenshots of it, and I like a review or two, and it looked like what I would describe as what if the Disgaea people made a Train Odyssey.
Okay.
So it's first person dungeon crawler with the
Sounds
artwork
nightmarish.
yeah. With the artwork of the Disgaea team, it's all done by NIS Nippon Ichi. So
Right, I was going to say, is it actually the Disgaea team?
yes, it is actually the
Okay.
Disgaea people that are making this
Yeah.
game, and I generally enjoy the Disgaea games. They're kind of silly, fun.
That first one
broken.
was a minor revelation. The ones since then have been more of that. So, not in a bad way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and some of them are better than others, but yeah, generally I like them. So I've been in the mood for that kind of thing ever since I played 2021's cult classic Dungeon Encounters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I've become this guy, but I was like, yeah, you know what, that looks. Yeah, I was like, you know what, that looks pretty fun. I read a couple reviews and they were like, this is a solid 8 out of 10, 50 hours experience, fun stuff going on.
Sure.
I'm like, all right, that's good enough for me. I'll give it a shot. I've discovered the reviews perhaps did not do it justice. For one, I would describe the effect similar to if you guys remember when NieR Automata first came out and some of the reviews only covered ending A.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was a very similar feeling to that because I found out 50 hours is like the first half of the game.
I was going to say, 50 hours sounds a bit short for an NIS RPG.
Yeah,
So.
like I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a massive, what I would describe as a reboot of the game after that point, and you are definitely not done with the game at that point. There's that, and I feel like perhaps the reviews undersold how good the story is, which surprised me a lot because usually you're not playing these games for the story.
Yeah,
like Jill, I was actually curious because I mean, we've seen you talking about a lot about the game itself, right? The dungeon crawling and the sheer like sprawling depth of it, but I don't know if I actually still have a good handle of what the actual story is in this game.
Yeah. So again, it's like I kind of don't want to spoil too much, but
of course, but
well, first of all, just on the kind of mechanics note, yes, there's a lot of crunchy stuff to do with numbers and all kinds of creating your characters and building your teams that can have up to 40 people on them. It's wild. That stuff is fun, although I kind of am finding the game kind of too easy, even on hard mode. So,
Okay.
Spoken like a true RPG freak.
Look, I'm not trying to like flex or anything. I'm just saying that even though there's a lot of game mechanics, you don't necessarily have to engage with a lot of them,
Right.
and that's kind of like a hit or miss because in some ways it's so complicated. I almost don't. I'm kind of glad I don't have to, but also like they're there. Right?
Is there like some super hardcore mode that you unlock? Do you think, or something like that?
So far, I have only seen there's like an easy, normal, easy, normal, and hard, and I've been playing in the hard mode, and I still think it's a little easy.
Sure.
But the point is, I guess the mechanical stuff, which have been enjoying, has kind of been supplanted by the story for me of like why I'm really enjoying this game. And so, as far as what it's about, the setting is what I would describe as French Revolution.
Okay.
okay.
It is not actually France. It is fake fantasy Europe,
yes.
of course. But there's, eating the rich and nobles getting guillotined, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of civil unrest as, class warfare is opening up between the rich and the poor and all that. And that's kind of like the big picture. And then it kind of is more focused specifically on the sort of historical mistreatment of women and their roles in society.
Okay.
Dang.
And
Very shocking, I will say.
no, I was shocked that there was actual like meat to this story, and it's kind of told through the idea of, you know, there's these witches that have, you know, magical powers, and, you know, historically witches have often, you know, been representative of perhaps women not conforming to society and all
Yes,
that.
you could say that.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what they're going for, right? Is that idea, and the witches are of different ages, different standings, which leads to them all having different problems that are all very real problems that women have to put up with.
This is like all of your party members or your characters are witches.
No, so your party are like your kind of created characters that don't have any personality. They're like literally puppets, but the main characters in the story part are witches, basically. That's the easy explanation, and it's not only is it like kind of impressive that they're going for those kinds of themes, but like the storytelling is very like, we love our show don't tell kind of storytelling, you know. And a lot of the things, there's some really awful things that happen, and they're kind of terrifying in a way that's different, because they're not like over the top cartoonish stuff. It's like things that are like kind of real. So I'll give one example of what I'm talking about. One of the main girls is, you know, young teenage witch. She's like this snarky, foul-mouthed shut-in that lives in one of the main girl's attic. And
so the one,
you know,
the one who's going to get all the figures, then.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so she you know, if you look at her character design, she's like slumped over with terrible posture. She's wearing a hoodie and covered head to toe.
She's the one in the hoodie. Okay.
Yeah, so you guys have seen some of the screenshots I've shared. You know, very, very unsexy, but, you know, she can't hide the fact that she has a curvy body. And they at first they kind of make some of the usual anime jokes about it, like the other girl being like, "Oh, I wish I had big boobs like you," and all that. But it's a setup. They're setting you up.
Man.
Oh shit!
The FBI are about to bust in.
Am I about to regret my words and deeds?
Yes, they're gonna make you feel bad about it, because she basically gets constantly sexually harassed, and not as a joke. Throughout the game. Like it's like kind of like disturbing and heavy, and like there's one particular, and like again, it's in a way that's like kind of more like realistically underhanded than like cartoonish, you know, evil type of things. So like there's this one bit where one of the girls drags her out of the house. They have to go to like to the big warehouse thing to get some stuff, and they have to talk to the guy that manages the warehouse, and he's just kind of like creepy. He's kind of creepy looking middle-aged man guy, but you know, everything's normal. He gets the stuff and everything. And like on the way out, he's like, "Oh, that's a very, you know, interesting hoodie thing you're wearing. You know, if I could take your measurements, I could probably, you know, make a new one for you or whatever." And
no thanks.
And like it's just on the borderline of like something that almost sounds like a normal thing to say, but it's also just enough where you're like, okay, this is creepy and uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, that's the point, right?
Yes.
Is that it's like that type of harassment is about prodding at your borders, right? It's a sort of thing of like, if you get visibly and audibly indignant, the guy can just back off and be like, "Whoa, hey, take it easy. I was just asking a question," you know?
Plausible deniability.
That's kind of exactly what happens, where she's like, you know, "Hey, back off, dude." And he's like, "Yeah, well, whatever." It's exactly, and those are things that my friends my friends who are women tell me about that. My sisters tell me about things like that happening. Like that's like stuff that really happens. And you know, this girl doesn't normally go out in part because of this. Like she even says, so like after they leave, you know, she's been like, you know, kind of snarky and completely unflappable this whole time. But after they leave, and you know, she plays it off and tries to be cool or whatever, they get further down the road, and she kind of breaks down crying, and she's like, this is why I can't go out, River. And they never like explain any further, but you can piece together everything that's going on, like,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of one of many scenes like that with her and a lot of the other characters. Women dealing with getting older, having to pressure to have children, all kinds of different stages of life and the things that they have to put up with. And I was just shocked that all of this was happening in this
in your
game.
in your anime dungeon crawler.
I mean,
my anime dungeon crawler.
I almost wish this was like a story was put in a different video game, because I kind of want to experience this now. But I'm not built like that. I can't explore first-person dungeons for 80 hours. I'm not. It ain't me.
Kind of surprising that this is coming from NIS as well, who's have a history of games that are perhaps guilty of indulging in anime tropes more.
Okay, yeah.
So
that's the other thing. Like, you're right, G. Like, they're kind of known. The games themselves aren't too bad, but they're usually embraced by, the type of people that are like, Japan doesn't have gay people. Those kind of people, right? Like.
They certainly pander to the hardcore otaku crowd a little bit.
And
that's
and not so.
Put it.
Yeah, and so like not only do we have like those themes, but there's also like other things that do, like there are gay people. There's a non-binary job class you can pick. There's one bit where there's a very explicitly transgender character whose plot is about being transgender, and it's not a joke. Okay. So like, I was just overall just surprised how like woke complimentary
I guess
everything was from in a genre that is traditionally not that, right?
Yeah, I guess like I'm not the most like well versed on NIS games. Like I mainly played Disgaea 1 and 2.
I mean that's fairly solid template.
That tells you a lot.
Yeah. I guess it's like it is that thing of like, I mean, obviously it sounds like this is like operating on a different higher level of like, I don't know, narrative sophistication, I guess, for lack of a better term. But
yes,
I will say it's like the thing I do remember about playing both Disgaea 1 and 2 is like those games could occasionally dip into getting kind of real.
Yes,
it's just that
absolutely.
Like it's a thing that I even noticed as a kid playing those games is like both 1 and 2 would occasionally dip into, okay, jokes aside, like this is how these characters actually feel, and like this is what they're going through, and like those are the moments when I go like, yes, no, actually, do tell me more about like why Laharl or whatever that dude's name is feeling his sense of inadequacy as like the next demon lord or whatever. But then that scene would last like 8 minutes, and then it's back to like anime hijinks, and it's interesting then to hear about this game where maybe the balance of the ratio is starting to swing in the other direction, or maybe just it's starting to equalize.
Yeah, no, you're that's a completely accurate. And something that I also noticed, where this is definitely a much more mature method of storytelling than the Disgaea series. If that's the rated T for teen kind of goofy, fun thing that occasionally gets serious, this is a very adult, type of mature story.
Which, at least based on the screenshots I've seen, though, is still more than willing to get goofy at times, right?
There's some weird things out of context for sure, and it's not all like dour, serious stuff. Like there's some.
I mean, that donkey said he'll fucking kill you. So.
Yes, that was a very funny, but yes, in terms of balance, there's less of those and more of the serious stuff, and then you kind of break it up with some of the funny stuff. So it's a different balance for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's I've really been enjoying it. I will say, as I'm trying to finish the game and I'm about 85 hours in, it is perhaps dragged out a little too long, like a little bit. But just the way they've been able to use some very mature themes, The big twist in the middle that, again, I don't want to spoil any details, but it's completely reboots everything, and then they kind of bring everything back together again. But it's just been it's completely shocked me, the whole experience, and I've been very much enjoying it.
One thing I will say is that they could really do with a better title, because that current one is kind of just Mad Libs anime RPG.
Yes.
Yeah.
Labyrinth of Galleria, the Moon Society.
The noun.
Yes. Does not really tell you. Well, there is literally a labyrinth in Galleria Manor,
Yes.
and there is a Moon Society, and that's doesn't really tell you much.
Sometimes you need to employ a little bit of artful description, perhaps. But I'm glad, I think that it's great whenever genuine surprises like this bubble up, and certainly it's on my radar now where I hadn't even heard of it before. So that's always a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully they don't ruin the ending. That's the the only part I'm worried about. And it's in a position where they could do some things that would possibly ruin things with the ending. But we'll see. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Keep us up.
I'm getting there. So for now, though, on this podcast, recorded on tape, it's great.
Yeah.
So.
All right. What's up next in the gaming no corner?
Well, speaking of the least surprising good game,
Zig, you've been playing the Metroid Prime remaster?
Yeah, Metroid Prime? They remastered it.
Wow.
Joking aside, it is very much one of those ultra faithful remasters, right? It has been, they've completely redone all the graphics, it's all new textures, all new lighting, all of that kind of stuff. Looks lovely, looks great, but it plays pretty much exactly like that game always played.
Right. This is not a Dead Space remake situation.
No,
this is a one-to-one remake of the original.
Yeah, and as somebody who has played GameCube Metroid Prime a bunch, this feels exactly like that. I bet the same skeleton of a game is running underneath it. A couple of minor things. Obviously the big thing was this. The graphical upgrade, the control upgrade. So the default control scheme is just a standard twin stick, Halo style controls now. Left trigger locks on, right trigger shoots. There are all sorts of funky control schemes you can have. You can go back to the original GameCube one. It will work with GameCube controllers if you have the
yeah, right.
It has the pointer controls from the Wii re-release.
It's got gyro, baby.
Yeah, all of that. This is as far as I can tell, this is based on the trilogy version, which means that it's mostly based on the revised version that was released in Europe and Japan, as opposed to the original American version, which means, there's a couple of minor changes. They patched a few things to stop speedrunning glitches and changed some of the scans, but it's mostly still that game, and I think it's really fascinating in this day and age, that just how absurdly sort of counter-focused group that game is. It's very slow. There's a lot of backtracking, especially if you turn off the hint system, which, I did, but also I know that game fairly well. I don't have any judgment on people who choose to play with it on. But, it's kind of it's a game which values patience and thorough exploration and, good memory. I will say that it might have been nice if they had added some stuff like the ability to make notes on the map or something like that to remind you of where pickups and stuff are, but none of that's in there. It's still a truly, truly fantastic game. I don't think there's really anything more needs to be said. It is the platonic ideal of how you could take Metroid and put it into a modern third-person world, and this is a very faithful remaster. It looks lovely. It plays perfectly well. It's not as huge an upgrade as you would expect because original Metroid Prime still looks pretty good. And B, it always ran at 60 frames per second. So, but yeah, it's really nice. It's still a great game. I think perhaps I appreciate it even more now just because of how different it is from a lot of modern games.
I have to say, I always appreciate when a classic gets a new way for people to experience it, like it can live on, right?
Yeah,
because I mean, prior to this, what would you have to get, like the Wii one or something? Like, I don't know what the last...
there's a whole combination of stuff. Like the GameCube one, obviously, you need a GameCube. The Wii one has been out of print for years and is actually the trilogy re-release is actually fairly rare, is my understanding. It was a limited print run thing,
right?
And also, not many people still have a Wii kicking about, or even a Wii U hooked up.
Yeah.
This is just a great way for that game to get back out to a bunch of people,
Yeah.
And, there have been ways to play Metroid Prime in this fashion if you want to dink around with emulators and stuff for a long time. Right. But like we were saying with Mahoyo, there is a lot of... value to just something you can go into a store or onto a website and say, give me that, and it's there,
Right.
Yes.
It's like if my nephew, who was not alive when GameCube was out, wanted to play it someday, I can play it, right? Like it's always good to see.
This was
things
definitely
get like that.
One of the games where I was like, isn't it too soon for Metroid Prime to have a remaster? Like, it's not an old game.
It's been, 20 years?
21 years. 21 years old. So I was like,
Yikes.
oh.
Yeah, that's one of those, oh, wait, didn't Super Metroid come out 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Not Prime, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But yes, I think that I would be fascinated to hear somebody who is somebody much younger than us, obviously, who has never really played the game before, because it is hostile by modern standards. I would say,
right. A lot of the modern expectations are not there, right?
And I would say, it shows its age in subtle ways. Like I said, there's the lack of mod cons like annotatable maps. You definitely notice how relatively compact the world is going back through it. There's not a lot of big open spaces or anything like that. But also, that is part of the charm of the game, right? It is this very tight maze of passages and tunnels and hidden objects and power-ups and all that kind of thing.
It's not like open world with a lot of dead space kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
no, it is... and it has that tremendous atmosphere, the sense of isolation, the sense of kind of like man or woman against nature.
Yeah.
It also has like a robot cyborg space dragon. So, it's still pretty good. That's what I'm saying.
Pretty great.
But yeah, I will probably write a review of it, but if you like Metroid Prime, you should get this. If you don't, I would be really interested to see what people new to Metroid, particularly the 3D Metroids, make of this one. But it's a very, very worthy way to play that game.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds
anything
good.
Else in the gaming no corner?
I could talk about some video games.
Okay.
What did you have in mind, G?
Yeah,
I've been playing a lot of games lately, and there's a lot I could talk about, like Hi-Fi Rush, which dominated my February, a very pleasant, very good character action game, maybe one of the best I've ever played.
So I've heard.
I could talk about Phantom Brigade, mecha strategy game that falls short of the dreams of what I wish it could have been. But this is an anime podcast.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to keep it on topic. I've been pretty depressed lately.
Yep,
so
that's on topic.
Yes.
I started playing Blue Archive.
Oh my god.
Wait, what?
the bunny girl ship game?
Did you intentionally not tell me about this so we could drop it on the podcast?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay.
I don't know what Blue Archive is.
You realize I was like top 100 on Blue Archive
Like
for
what?
a stretch. Yes. I stopped playing it since, but
Blue Archive is another one of them like Cancale types, right?
No, you are probably thinking of Azur Lane. Blue Archive.
Blue Azure, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Blue Archive is another. What is it?
It's more Girls Frontline adjacent, but the girls aren't actually guns.
Yes, it's another one of those Chinese anime gacha games. Yes, it's sort of akin to Girls Frontline of you are collecting and raising cute girls with guns.
Oh, so it's just like Metroid Prime then?
Yeah, exactly.
In a way.
You know, the main difference between, say, because I'm a man of very limited gacha frame of reference, to compare it to, say, a Girls Frontline or Arc Knights, Blue Archive is much lighter. It is much...
it's very easy to keep up with.
It's very fluffy, you know, the designs are like... You know, if Girls Frontline is like, you know, slutty tactical girls with guns, and Arc Knights is fashionable tactical girls with guns, Blue Archive is just cute schoolgirls with guns.
So you're just freebasing regular cocaine as opposed to crack, then?
Maybe the other way around. I don't know, but perhaps.
The reality is, okay, the reason I started playing Blue Archive is because I saw a girl named Saori, who is a cool-looking lady who looks like she belongs more in Arc Knights than Blue Archive.
This might be after my time.
I didn't realize this podcast was becoming a confessional.
And I was like, damn, that girl is looking fine. I guess I'll check out this Blue Archive game. And I don't know. Yeah, I've been playing it for the last couple of weeks. It's you know, like, I'll actually be totally real. Like, it's kind of been the release valve of like all the other games I've been playing, right? Because Hi-Fi Rush is very in the zone, intense, 100% brain power, right? Like, it is nailing your perfect parry timings. You know, now that I'm like replaying the game for like the 4th time on, you know, the next difficulty, like, it's sort of like, you know, it requires a lot of focus, right? Phantom Brigade, again, tactics game, like, you know, heavy customization. Again, lots of brainness required. Blue Archive is very light. It's very low commitment, right? Like, it is one of those gacha games that almost knows that it will never be your main one and that it exists to be your side piece. Right. Because it has all these like mechanics of like, hey, have you beaten a mission before? You could just skip it. Like, you could just you don't have to grind it ever again. Just press this button and we will simulate you having done this mission 5 times in a row.
Yeah, you could do your daily stuff in like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah,
like, it's
exactly.
Very low commitment.
It's super low commitment. But also, I gotta be real, I'm kind of enjoying the story and characters. Like, I look at these like fucking doe-eyed schoolgirls and they're, you know, going, oh boy, I love ice cream. And
some of it is genuinely funny. Like,
yeah, and so that's a thing, right? I look at these girls and I go, all right, is it just going to be like some slice of life chaos shit, right? And then it's like the first storyline in the game that you as a new player play is like, you're like your role in this world is that you're a school advisor, because in the world of Blue Archive, schools are akin to militarized nation states. And so each school has its own territory and self-sustaining economy.
But in a cute way.
In a cute way, yes. And the students are the enlisted military of each of these schools. Yeah. And you play as a neutral student advisor who is just, you know, that is their excuse for why you're just walking around helping out a bunch of schoolgirls with guns.
People are talking like you've been inducted into a cult. Like, what the hell?
And so, like, the first plot line is you get sent to the school that is like the Amaishi comically poor school, like the
Shanty town.
the shanty town we live in cardboard boxes school, where like this school used to be one of the main contenders but went like hundreds of millions of, I don't know what their currency is, double dollars into debt. And
Right.
as a result, all of the students have fled that school and defected, except for 5 remaining who believe that if they just ganbare their way to the top, they can earn the hundreds of millions of dollars owed to pay off the debt for the school. And the very first like story is like you're attending their brainstorm session for how are we going to save the school, and the 3 suggestions put forth by 3 of the students is A, rob a bank, B, invest in a pyramid scheme, and C, hijack a bus full of students from a different school and press gang them into becoming students of our school.
Is that what the gacha pull is?
Not quite, but
Missed
it's like-
opportunity there for sure.
right, I know, right? But it's just like, I don't know. It's like the thing I would say about Blue Archive that it does surprisingly well, that surprised me and caught me off guard and had me going, oh, actually, I kind of dig this, is it engages in my preferred form of D&D, which is dipshits and dirtbags.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is kind of every character in Blue Archive, every character you could pull in the gacha in Blue Archive can be categorized as some form of either dipshit or dirtbag. And it just depends where on that XY spectrum they exist on that characterizes them. And it's just the reality, but of course they are also cutesy schoolgirls because you got to get the whales that way. But in terms of their actual characterization, I went, oh, like, okay, here's the character who's like, haha, she's an anime glutton. She just likes to eat. And then it later explains that's why she belongs to a terrorist organization whose goal is to cause as much mayhem and chaos as possible as a distraction so they can sneak into like fine dining places and eat their food. And it's like, well,
right.
tell
As
me
you
more,
do,
I guess. So
Yeah, it's a lot of lighthearted fun. I also find the battles, like the animations and stuff, strangely satisfying.
It's
it's
the
something
little
about seeing a
chibi-
little anime girl blasting someone's head with a shotgun is very entertaining. But yeah, and generally the sense of humor. I'll just share my favorite joke.
Okay.
I think the girl's name is it Smugi. She's like the girl that looks like a zombie, basically.
Oh, her, yes,
With the shotgun.
yes.
So you can, they fill in the story with you basically like Discord messaging the girls, right?
Okay.
And you get a message from her. It sounds like zombie talk. It's like that, right? Just like
Okay,
random
Is it
letters or
because
whatever.
She's eating with her like.
No, she kind of talks like that. I don't know why, but she
okay.
kind of is a zombie. I don't know. No, they never really explain that. But but she'll have moments of lucidity where she talks normal. So like, yeah, in the Discord chat, it's just like random letters, just noises or whatever. And then after a second, it's like, oh, sorry, that was supposed to go to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's just normal.
Oh, wrong chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, wrong chat.
Sorry, chat. So it has a very good sense of humor.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, it's that weird thing of like, yeah, I did not think I could be a 2 gacha person, but Blue Archive makes it extremely easy. So
Yeah.
that has been a
Well,
thing. That
Once
has
again,
taken up-
our gacha playing does not line up. G. I don't know.
I
If
know,
I'm
right?
too ahead of the curve here or what? But,
No, I mean I am years late to the party, right? Blue Archive has
Yeah.
been out since like last year. It's just that, I mean, so I mean, like, I don't know, not to like turn this into like an actual topic, but it's like it's that thing though of like I did not bother with the game because I didn't like its art style, right?
Yeah.
Like look, I know I am the girls with gun aficionado, but like I looked at all these designs and it's like it wasn't even like girl with a gun and she looks kind of badass. It was literally like your most like basic ass like, you know, slice of life moe show archetype, but she's
Yeah.
got a gun, you know? And it was not until they started releasing characters who are meant to now fill the cool girl archetype that I
Right.
started paying attention.
The cool girl,
And-
you say?
And that's why I
Yeah.
picked up the game. And then later, like, met some of these girls that I had completely written off because of their design, and it was like, oh wait, no, you're actually hilarious. Shit, my bad. I sorry for judging a book by its cover, I guess.
Yeah. Well, gee, I'm hesitant to say I'm glad you've fallen down this dark hole with me, but
I think that's. I did open this up by saying I'm depressed. That's why I started playing.
I totally understand it.
The pain, at least.
I totally understand it. I am the gotcha guy on the GLORIO blog. I'm not judging at all. I've already, as I said, I was top 100 in that game. I've been there. So
what you mean, like the raids, like
in the PvP?
Oh, you're a PvP guy. Jeez, okay.
I was top 100 in PvP on there. Yeah.
All right.
So I totally get it. But
I don't know. I will
it-
say the last thing I'll say in hindsight. Did Bocchi the Rock help prepare my brain mentally for this?
oh, maybe.
Because like Bocchi the Rock is the
I
same.
didn't think
deal,
about that. I didn't
right?
think
Of,
about
like-
that, but there's definitely a connection there.
right? Because
yeah.
Bocchi is a similar case of like, I don't care about these character designs. They look lame and generic to me. And then you watch the show and you go, oh wait, no, these 4 generic looking schoolgirls are actually the funniest characters in any anime this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that might maybe. It's kind of a similar idea there for sure.
A very flattering comparison for Bocchi the Rock, definitely.
Well, I don't think it's as funny as Bocchi, but the idea of the designs kind of turning us off at first, right? But
Right.
all right, we'll have to catch up more on that later. G, talk shop.
Sure.
I don't.
I might need to add you as a friend so I can clear these high level raids with somebody else's much more developed character.
Although I'm a little rusty because I haven't played in a year, but we'll
Fair
talk
enough.
about that. So, all right. One more thing before we get to anime. There's a new Sentai show, apparently, huh?
Yeah, there is indeed.
Yeah.
So it's Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger?
Yes, which you
Okay.
could, if you're feeling ungenerous, you could translate as King Sentai King Ranger, but
Yes.
yes, it's that time of year again. Don Brothers was bad. That was last year's show. They had the 2 CGI Rangers, which was it's in
Not
the
a good
past
choice, I don't think.
So this show is
Interesting.
interesting. It they've gone way more like fantastical than they normally do, seemingly. And I should point out we've only seen one episode. An episode will have aired the morning that we record this, but we haven't seen that yet. But there's a lot of this is set on a parallel world, seemingly. There's like a whole lot of green screen. I read that they're doing a lot of the kind of like wraparound virtual set stuff that they do on like The Mandalorian and stuff, except obviously this looks way better than The Mandalorian. And is much more interesting. But
Damn.
yeah, no, it's it's very frenetic, as you would expect. There's some extremely cool robot fights, and the robot is a giant dude in a suit again, which is what's important. And people are throwing like bits of building from off camera, and it has all the like good Sentai shit that you want, and less perhaps of the horrible like cheap stuff, as opposed to the fun cheap stuff. So it seems like it might be fun. It's so hard to tell after one episode, right? Because they're always like super fast paced, like get all the toys out commercials, basically. But I've got a good feeling about this one, at least.
Isn't the like the plot a little more complex than usual on this one?
It seems like it. Yeah, I mean, it depends.
It's still a kid show, right?
Yeah,
But,
right.
yeah.
Like it. They're doing a lot more world building than usual, right? Because it is set in a parallel world. There's like 5 parallel kingdoms, and like each one of them is ruled by a king or queen who is also one of the rangers, except for the kingdom represented by the Red Ranger, because that king turns out to be evil. So a peasant, we think so far, has instead become the Red Ranger, and he is every Red Ranger ever. He's effervescent, he's a goody two shoes, he's kind of annoying, but they seem to be like trying hard to build some sort of mythos with this thing so far. It'll be interesting to see how deep they choose to go in that direction, because for better or worse, Super Sentai is normally a pretty basic premise thing. So
right.
But they're trying, and it's definitely got a different vibe from some recent shows.
The Game of Thrones of Super Sentai.
Jesus.
I mean, look, the Red Wedding is already thematically appropriate, so But it's hard to say, I mean, the one thing that is for sure is that this first episode had, like, by Sentai standards, clearly a massive budget, and it's going to be interesting to see how they transition from this episode, which was like almost all on green screens and had like a lot of CGI, which, to be clear, the CGI is still bad, but it's also expensive in a way that you can't go throwing it around. It's going to be interesting how they handle the transition from that into, we must have a fight at these 3 Tokyo landmarks where we always film the fights, and also
they'll get back to the quarry somehow.
Yeah, they'll get back to that quarry, you know. Although they have been using the quarry less in recent years because there are less practical explosions, to which I say boo. But yeah, I don't know. I think that setting an entire series in like a parallel world Magic Kingdom is way beyond the ability of a show of Super Sentai's budget and ambition.
I bet you that they will Isekai to Earth like a few episodes in.
Okay, Eero, but hear me out. What if instead...
Yes.
A dude does such a fucking sick trick on a motorcycle. He gets isekai into the world of this Sentai. And he becomes the 6th Ranger.
You can't get into Tomino Power Hour.
I know.
Hour in and haven't even...
I mean, look, there is a fairly high chance that will be what happens with the 6th Ranger anyway. Also, the mech this time is piloted by one person, and it has like a weird exoskeleton that's kind of like a cross between the Moros Trace system from G Gundam and like that robot boxing film with Hugh Jackman that I always can't remember.
Real Steel!
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Jay. I know I can always rely on you to remember the name of a horrifyingly bad but obscure movie. But
look, it's got robots in it.
With robots punching each other.
It feels fresh, and like that might just be because we haven't been watching for a year, because again, Don Brothers was bad, but it definitely seems like they're going for something. It's like the head writer. It's the first time he's like run a show. The lead director directed Ryu Soldier from a couple of years ago, which wasn't my personal cup of tea, but did have very stylish mech battles.
Right.
So,
what I recall from Ryu Soldier is that like the action and especially the robot directing was really cool, and the writing was not good.
Yes. Yeah, that was basically it. So, yeah, we'll see. But I feel very optimistic about it. Like, I'm excited to see where they go with it, and I think I'm more excited about it than because like the 2 series before the last one were both fun, but also in a very clear, we are really kind of like scraping the barrel here.
What were those? It was Kira Major
and Zenkaiger.
Zenkaiger, God, right? Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, I'm excited. I will be following along for a bit, at least. I mean, the thing we always say about Super Sentai and Kamen Rider to a lesser extent is that these shows are so formulaic that they live and die by the small details, things like the individual character interactions and stuff, and so we will have to get a few episodes in and see where they're going with that before we can really put a bow on it.
did you have anything to add, Iro?
No,
'Cause you've been watching.
that's pretty much the thing.
You guys are both pretty positive on it.
Yeah,
so far.
Yeah, I'm interested in where it goes because yes, like the whole setting thing is not sustainable.
Right. So, yes, Isekai seems imminent, but we'll see. Okay. Well, we'll check on that later. We got a whole year, right?
Uh-huh.
So we'll see how that
sure
goes.
do.
All right, let's get to some anime.
Yeah,
Wow.
we got anime to talk about.
Yeah.
we
All
got-
right.
Quick programming note. I am still watching Bofuri. It came back for one episode after their COVID break, but like almost nothing happened. And for time, I said, let's just talk about it later. But I am still watching
Fair
it.
enough.
Did not drop it. Moving on. Speaking of another show that came back from COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
NieR Automata.
Yes.
Yes, NieR Automata version 1.1a,
Mm-hmm.
which continues to be a sort of, I guess, interesting companion piece to the game here.
Yeah.
I will say
Yeah.
that I have gone from being skeptical about this show to being generally quite impressed by it.
Yeah. So the first episode, I was kind of surprised they devoted an entire episode to the flashback.
Yeah, we got the Yorha stage play.
Yes.
For the your stage play, basically.
Pearl Harbor mission.
And yeah, that was the whole episode. Was that as Lily telling the story of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess ultimately that's like the origin of A2, right? Because they were setting up her coming into the story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very weird to hear like super perky anime girl.
I know, very
A2.
Genki A2.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought it was a solid I thought it was a solid episode.
I really
Yeah,
liked
no,
it. It's one of those things of like the thing I was talking about with Ira when we watched it is like in a lot of ways we didn't necessarily need to see this moment in the game, right? Like the Yorha sort of like in for context in the video game NieR Automata, you don't really get a cutscene showing A2's backstory, right? You get a text log that is basically a like what's the word
Exposition.
I guess like like a text version of the Yorha stage play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right. You don't even really have to read it, right? Like it's just
no, it's kind of just there to give
An
like
optional
some
thing, yeah.
it's just kind of just gives some texture to what drives A2 as a character in the game, right?
Yeah.
And how that connects to her relationship with the Resistance, right? And it's one of those things of like it's an important part of to a certain character, and thus there's some interesting background there, but you didn't necessarily need it to appreciate NieR Automata,
Right.
And in a lot of ways, the anime, because it is a non-interactive medium, can actually more get away with this type of flashback episode, right? Because something like this would break up the pace of gameplay in a video game, right? And it's like, hey, stop for 20 minutes to watch this cutscene.
And to kind of add on to that, I mean, the thing we were asking about this show when it began was, why does this exist? What purpose does this fulfill? And I think they found one, which is, to colour outside the edges of the story told in the game, right? To like add context and sort of a bit more depth to some of the things which the game, partially deliberately, partially because of its nature as a game, sort of glossed over a bit, right? So a few episodes back, we had kind of a bit more backstory for Pascal. Here we have kind of like some setup stuff for Lily and also for A2, and so by telling those stories that are sort of hinted at or backgrounded in the game and sort of bringing them forward, I think they've actually found a niche where this show has a purpose, beyond the simple retelling of the video game story.
And there's a lot of fun details there that like, because the nature of video games is that you are sort of like viewing the perspective of your player character, you have a specific perspective on the story that is being presented to you. Whereas with the anime, it can kind of get away with like, yeah, the anime can in fact show you what did the other Yorha units look like in that flashback, right? Like we don't just meet the android that eventually becomes A2. We also meet I forget their exact numbers, but the other
number 21 and
the other Yorha crew,
right? And like
there,
it's sort of that fun detail, right? Of like if you're a fan of the game, that all Yorha units of the same number are based off of the same build of Android, right? That is why A2 and 2B look identical, right? And it's like, oh, right. So, like, you see 21 in this flashback, and you know that 21O is a semi-prominent character in the game, right? And it's like, it's fun, right? It's like it's not necessarily like required for the plot, but as a fan, it is a fun detail to see, right? Like, oh, 21 units were always like support units, right? Stuff like that. And and again, I guess this is the part where we finally confirm that we are definitely in a different timeline, right? Because Anemone does show up prominently in this flashback, and she dies by the end of the flashback. Which firmly cements Lily as the sole survivor of the resistance in this this timeline, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This version of events.
Yeah, like I'm not
version 1.1a.
I'm not necessarily sure they're going to play the alternate timeline thing so much as this is just another version of the story.
So when they were doing the Yorha stage play and like around that time and around when the game came out, they put out multiple different versions of the horror stage play that all had names like 1.1 and like 1.3 and whatnot. That all had minor differences, right?
Right, of course. Yeah, no, it was a good, solid episode. I think they did a good job of covering like a lot of ground in one episode. Like they told a pretty complete story without it feeling, too lacking. Just kind of well made, but yeah, it was nice to get that kind of filled in, and now you don't have to watch the stage play, I guess. But you're gonna have to go find that somewhere.
But
it's out there.
And then the second of the two episodes, I think, again, even if it, the second episode is also is quite plot relevant, right? But again, the anime does this fun thing of it kind of mixes and remixes like elements of the game.
So I've not seen this episode. So can you like give me a quick load?
So yeah, it's
oh, you go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, so the second episode, we have to meet A2 now because we kind of hinted at that. So it's primarily they go to the Forest Kingdom.
Sure.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is kind of what you're getting at, G, but I guess I appreciate one of the things I've really appreciated about this adaptation is like the changes they do make are definitely like in the service of fitting the medium better. So like in this episode, I really loved how like the bits with Pascal and like have this sort of anime silliness to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're very like it would not work. It would not fly in the game at all.
Right.
I
mean, like
would
yeah,
not
like
match the game at all, but it works well in like in anime format.
Like the spoiler-free version of it is basically Pascal accompanies 2B and 9S to the Forest Kingdom. Like basically, there's a reason why Pascal needs 2B and 9S's help. They need to go to the Forest Kingdom, and it is basically like the plot of one of the side quests in NieR Automata that has now been folded into the main plot to justify why they're going to the Forest Kingdom. Because in the original game, you're just kind of told to go there because Yorha told you to. And
there's another mission of killing some machines. Or whatever.
And in the original game, that plays into the overriding theme that you have no agency, obviously, which is something which works in a interactive medium, but not in a passive one. So, just kind of like finding fresh motivation of folding in some of that side content. That's just good writing.
Yeah.
And
but this is kind of like last time we were talking about the amusement park, kind of similar thing here where they kind of cut through a lot of the stuff that you would just play in the game that doesn't make sense for you to show on screen in an anime, right? And kind of just cut right to the point with it. And I think it's probably, I mean, again, you can't recreate the game, so put it in a way that makes sense in animated form, right?
Right. Like for example, they introduced the looter tier in the latest episode of NieR Automata, right?
God.
And again, it's like that thing of like in the original game, that's like a side quest, right? It's like, hey, go find this damn flower or something, right? And here it again sort of ties into the main plot.
Yeah. And it's just nice to hang out with Pascal.
Yeah, the Pascal stuff, again, like, like you say, like, the really anime bit, right? It's like, there's like a section in that start of that show where it's like, it's completely in character in hindsight, but it's like so like weirdly jarring the way Pascal like moves and behaves.
Yes.
That it almost catches you off guard.
Yeah, you guys will see everybody will see when I pick the header image for this episode.
Is it when he's pointing?
You probably know which one I'm talking about, but it's
I
going to
think
be
so,
from this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just and when they do get to the parts in the game with the A2 actually showing up and everything, it works.
Yeah,
like they make it work. The intense bit with the new king and all that, and if you play the game, you know what happens at the Forest Kingdom, right?
The king of the Forest Kingdom.
Yeah, and it's again.
It's making it work.
They just continue to find ways to make this thing work.
They've pulled it back. They pulled it together somehow.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested. Now that A2's here, are they going to commit to what happens to, I guess, with the A2 and 2B?
It kind of seems like they might be folding all the routes into one route, right?
Yeah,
maybe we'll see because
we're getting to the point where routes have to happen, right? So
after Force Kingdom, right?
Yeah. So what happens when we get to Route C and all that? Like, it'll be interesting, but that's all. Speculation, I guess, at this point, based on us playing the game.
The only thing is, the only complaint I have, and I know it's unlikely given the content of past episodes, I do hope Emil shows up in his tuk-tuk with, his silly song.
It seems kind of unlikely now.
Yeah, I know, but, let me...
I agree. Yeah, I agree, but it seems... They did have the puppet show.
Yes, Emil does
puppet
show in the puppet show.
Emil gets one line that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
They're like, "Do you know what night and day is?" And all the robot kids are like, "No," and Emil just chimes in, "Yes!" out of nowhere. Yeah, those puppet shows are also still great.
Very good.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's move along and talk about Vinland Saga Season 2.
It's good.
Our only unironically good show.
Yeah.
Wow, it's good.
I think we just established that NieR is also pretty good, so, but...
I will say, again, I say this every time,
sure.
I don't think it's good if you didn't play the game.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
No, so that's my caveat on that.
Also, that first episode is total dog shit. I can't believe that
first
episode was allowed to happen when the rest of that show is so good.
So in Vinland Saga, Thorfinn and Einar have been clearing away their small little field, in the woods to start farming wheat and earn their freedom over time.
Yeah, and there's the first of these two episodes very much is sort of leaning into Thorfinn and Einar's growing friendship, right?
Yes.
An important thing that happens in the first of these two episodes is Thorfinn finally opens up to Einar about his past, about who Askeladd was. And, just the two are growing closer, and, Thorfinn is very much beginning to get into that question of, can I be reborn? Can I be fixed as a person, right?
Mm-hmm. Because like Einar has said, you're like a child who doesn't know anything because Thorfinn has only known killing, and so simple things like the wheat sprouting are revelatory to him. But the jerk retainers on the farm are tired of those uppity slaves. And go and they sneak in and mess up the whole field. They dig up all the wheat, all the fresh wheat, and ruin it.
They sabotage their fields, destroy the roots specifically, so that the entire wheat crop is ruined for this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Thorfinn and Einar get into a scuffle with those guys.
They sure do, yes. And so for the first time...
Is it the time for farming is over now?
This is the first time in all of Season 2 that Thorfinn attack somebody, right? Like this
Right.
entire season, Thorfinn has been passive, or he has, been on the defensive. This is the first time when these freedmen are, talking about like, these slaves don't know their place. Their wheat is, the wheat of slaves wouldn't even taste good anyways.
So really, we're
et
doing
cetera,
everybody
right?
a favor by turning it up.
That Thorfinn finally attacks a person, and
just like decks a guy. In anger.
breaks his jaw, and the two get into this big old fist fight with the freedmen, right? And as a result, Thorfinn gets knocked unconscious. And that's where we get into the second of these 2 episodes, which is maybe this is the specific episode that as far as like 2 years ago, when I first started talking about what the Vinland Saga anime could be,
right?
This is the episode I was alluding to all those years ago.
Yes. Thorfinn goes on like a sort of vision quest, basically, of remembering his father and the lessons his father tried to impart on him, and how
he did not listen to.
That he didn't listen to and just went completely counter to, and he falls into this great pit, into some sort of hellish version of Valhalla, right, where everybody is just constantly murdering each other in this gross cesspit.
Like it is intended to like read as Valhalla in the sense that these are warriors, who in death now get to fight forever, but the warriors are portrayed as like gaunt, desiccated corpses with rictus grins, laughing endlessly, as they just like brutally cut each other down and commit all sorts of like, obscene violence upon each other.
Yep. And Askeladd is here as well. And, what tells Thorfinn to shape up, I guess.
Well, basically...
A little. I mean, there's more than that, of course.
Yeah, like the idea is that Thorfinn, in this dream, is hanging off the precipice of a cliff. He's about to fall into the pool with the rest of the warriors fighting, right? And Askeladd basically tells Thorfinn, like, damn, kid, you were given a chance to get out of this. You know how rare that is for people who kill for a living? Like, do you understand this rare privilege that you have been handed? Like most of us... Yeah, like most of us do this till we die, right? Like that's all that's left for us, right? Maybe 1 out of 1,000,000 of us gets to go down in history as a great warrior, and the rest of us are just meat for the pile. But you who has done acts just as evil as the rest of us, have been given a chance to be different. Are you going to take that chance, or are you going to give up here and now and fall into the abyss like the rest of us? And Thorfinn realizes nothing he does for the rest of his life will ever absolve him of the actions he has already committed. He has killed innocent people. He has cut down men in the prime of their lives. Nothing he does going forward will bring those people back to life. But he is still alive, and he still has a chance to be different, to make the world a different place.
Yeah.
And as someone who has the... Yeah, and he must keep climbing. Yes, he must climb out of the abyss. And yeah, then he wakes up from his dream, and
on the road,
yeah, with Einar as his witness, Thorfinn swears to pacifism from here on out, that he will never harm another person again, that he will uphold the lessons his father taught him all the way back in the first episode of season 1.
I am hammering the X button for doubt here.
We'll see,
We'll see.
But
yeah,
this is the oath he has sworn, that he will not resort to violence, that he will live by his father's mantra, which is that nobody in the world is your enemy, that no one in this world intrinsically has to die. And this is a message that Thorfinn will now struggle greatly to live up to going forward.
And as a sort of karmic reward, they're brought forth to the master for the brawl, but their buddy Pater, who is a former slave, investigated and found evidence that the retainers did tear up the field, and so while they are not punished, neither are Thorfinn and Einar. And
So best they could hope for at that point.
pretty much,
Yeah.
And back to work.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing, right? They've lost their farm. They've lost their harvest for the year. Like, they have a hard road ahead of them.
Time to cut down some more trees for next time.
This is what it means to live in this era, to be a slave in this era.
Yeah. And next week looks like it's back to Canute. So
yeah. Anyway, sorry, Jel. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. No, I just think it's cool that to make that the way that it seems like the story like actually progresses, and you're actually getting real like dramatic character development, right? You're not it's not a formulaic episode to episode type of thing, right? Like,
and it takes long enough that it feels meaningful too, right?
Right.
It's not like it's not like he had this epiphany at the end of season 1, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of shows would do that like on episode 2 or something, right? Like, and then that would be like the point of the show.
Sometimes you do because time to make these things really ring true, right?
Yeah, because they've invested so much time in it. And I understand it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it's good for the story building and the character development, but maybe it makes it harder for people to get invested in it because you got to wait so long, right? But
makes me more invested.
It seems like it's worth it, right? In this case,
it's really good.
I definitely think so. Yeah, I'm really happy with how well they pulled off this episode, because this is like a pivotal moment in the story. This is
yeah.
Again,
get a few of those frames that are like, they almost traced the manga panel for this one.
Yep.
Because the shading looks completely different.
A lot of votes in this episode was like, oh yeah, that's a manga panel.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds like that continues to be good then.
It is.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. And let's move along to Tomo-chan as a girl. G, anything going on?
Is Tomo-chan still a girl?
No, don't say it.
No, I'm going to do it every time.
I was going to do it if he didn't.
So I think the show is hitting its breaking point now of like, okay, we can't
drag this out any longer.
We can't drag this out anymore. Like, a confession's got to happen, right? Because this may be the only time, and this may be the only anime romance plot I can think of in which a Nintendo DS plays a pivotal role in the plot.
I'm thinking of PSPs. I'm thinking of
I was about to say Seiren, but that's a PSP.
Seiren had the 32X.
God,
it sure did.
Seiren.
But
I can't think of a DS though. It might be the yeah.
But the TLDR is basically okay. So here's the thing about the childhood friends episode that I didn't get into, that I didn't think was necessary to bring up episodes ago. Right? Is the whole why is June want to live up to Tomo's expectations so bad, right? And it's because he lent her his DS. When she was injured, she broke a leg or something, right? And she couldn't go out and play like she always does, right? He's like, here, you can play my DS, I guess. And, playfully, teasingly, she did not return it and said, the day you become a man who can surpass me, I'll return the DS to you, right?
Wow. Power move.
It's been 10 years since then. And she's finally returned the DS. But of course, to her, she doesn't remember that. She doesn't remember that absurd thing she said as a child. She's just like, oh yeah, bro, whoa, look, I still have your DS, my B. Hey, here you go, man. Sorry about I totally forgot about it.
This is perhaps the least realistic thing in the show so far, because if you had forgotten to give back a DS after 6 years, you wouldn't return it. You would just pretend that it had gone forever. Come on, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Well,
but he took it as the big, oh my god, she's acknowledging me as a man.
Yes, exactly. Right. And now June is like, shit, I have no more excuses. Look, I can't pretend that this isn't I can't pretend that I'm still I still don't meet her expectations, that I still haven't met her standards of what a man is. She has recognized me as a man, and now I have to confess. And it's like, you sure better, because we've been dragging this out for like 11 episodes, and I don't know how much more blood you can squeeze from this stone at this point.
So realistically, what are the odds that it happens?
I think it has, like, dude, if they don't by the end of this season.
By that I mean it actually happens, and they both understand the meaning of the words, which I have to specify.
All right, fine. I will say that I will say I would bet on it, if only because the other episode of these two is about one of the supplementary couples finally confessing to each other and hooking up, and so that almost feels like a. Like, yes, we know we're supposed to move this along. Like, all right, let's get these couples like hooked up, sort of
pressure's
thing.
on.
Yeah.
But all right,
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, there's a reason why Kaguya-sama's the GOAT. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
All right. Let's talk about the Fire Hunter, which we didn't have last time, but you guys are still watching.
We are.
Yeah. No, you go, Ira.
It exists. It's gotten a little harder to follow.
Yeah, I would say that the recent episodes, they've really struggled to kind of like translate what I would imagine is like very exposition heavy, dense storytelling of the source novel. It feels like they're laboring through a lot of stuff which they have to just come out and say because they can't find a way to integrate it
in. Yeah.
Do you think that's a product of bad directing, or is it the shoddy technical quality which we talked about?
It's nothing to do with the shoddy technical quality. Honestly, like, there's been less action in these episodes, and so the shoddy technical quality has not really been a huge issue most of the time.
Oh, okay.
But it does feel like it feels like a lack of grace, if you know what I mean. There are things happening. They're technically interesting, but like they're told, like I said, inelegantly. The storytelling comes in like bumps and lumps, and as a result, things are happening, but we're not really clear why, and there's not really a lot of drama in the happening.
Right. I don't feel like I don't have context for like why some of these things happening matters. Right.
Yes.
And I don't like have that much attachment to the characters.
Yeah.
What's going on is they've managed Toko, the child who has trying to return the sickle and dog to the capital, and her little entourage of another village girl, an injured mechanic, and the hot lady fire hunter. They've arrived in the capital. So Toko is trying to find where she can return the dog to in the capital. Meanwhile, the other guy is doing research on lightning, skyfire, and such. And there's still the rebellion thing happening with the Spider Clan. And it's revealed that the Spider Clan has figured out how to utilize fire without, burning alive. They can use real fire.
That seems like a big deal.
Yeah. And they're trying to do something. I guess that insurrection's probably happening.
Yeah, part of the problem is that the motivations of everyone involved are kind of murky, and that's deliberate because, like, it's meant to be part of the shroud of mystery that surrounds these sort of divine tribes. But it just kind of feels that everything is a bit muddy and unclear as well.
Yes.
Like we're not. I think like a good mystery, like breadcrumbs you little bits of, clues and story to try and lead you on into trying to figure it out. This just kind of feels that like a lot of things are happening without context, out of nowhere, and it's not fatal. It's not. It doesn't make the thing unwatchable or anything, but it does just kind of feel like the show is flailing a little bit.
Yeah. It's clear that the comet, or the Millennial Comet, or whatever they call it, is some kind of man-made satellite that or
Yeah, I mean,
the
we've been
Earth.
shown blatant shots of it. It's a space station or something
Yeah,
like that.
which supposedly contains, like, I don't know, the key to everything. Right. Whoever brings it down becomes the king of the fire hunters.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hikari
and
no Oro.
yes, and it's like, yeah. I mean, I'll watch to the end at this point, but it's like,
The show hasn't been
It
very
sounds
good
like
at making things seem dramatic. Like, there's not been a good build up to
mhm.
make us excited about these things.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, just from listening, the first couple episodes had a sort of like, I don't know, sense of mystery or something to them, and now it's like maybe they're not. Now they're just kind of throwing everything out at you now.
Kind
I don't
of, yeah.
know, but
There's still some mystery, but again, it just feels like they know they have an episode count and they know things have to happen, so they're kind of just doling out exposition in big lumps at this point.
Yeah.
And that works, and like I said, I still think the show is perfectly functional. It hasn't like degraded into being unwatchable, but it feels clumsy, and it feels, I keep saying it, inelegant.
right,
It feels
It's holding
artificial.
it back from like being like
Yeah.
Yeah.
really good.
With something like
right?
this, you really want to be immersed in the world, and you're just too often aware of like the artificiality of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see what they do with that, but we'll move on to Buddy Daddies.
How are these daddies doing?
How are the
All right,
how are the
so
Buddy Daddies?
First up, they got hit with a recap episode.
Oh, baby.
Oh boy.
So only one new episode since we last talked. And if you recall, when we left off, they did the tragic backstories of the Buddy Daddies.
Right, yes.
Ending with essentially a hit going out on the blonde guy and the little girl from the dark hair guy's dad. To take them out so that he can go back to being the rightful heir of the Assassin Kingdom or whatever, right? Sure. They just kind of ignore that for this episode.
Oh. Well.
Which is both good and bad, because it was good because it actually ended up being a good standalone episode, but also bad because, like, you guys know your life is in danger, right? You're doing absolutely nothing about it. Like, they don't acknowledge it or anything. Ray, the dark hair guy, just goes back home, and now he's like trying to put more effort into being a good dad. And it's a pretty great episode. It's field day at school, and the little girl is training for her race. And there's some funny bits where they have to use their skills here. So one of them is they get word that the area for the parents gets really crowded really fast, so you have to like stake out an area real quick, before people eat up the real estate, basically. People putting down their picnic blankets around the track and everything. So the Ray, he goes out in the middle of the night in like full camo and everything, and you see him like setting something up, but you don't really know what he's doing. And the next morning when they show up, you see that he put down a picnic blanket, but then surrounded it with like barbed wire and like claymores and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's like, we will get our spot. And then the blonde guy, Kazuki, later, he's like pulling out his like crazy huge telephoto lens, the surveillance camera thing, to take pictures while she's like running around the track and stuff. So it's all very good and sweet. And, there's not really too much more to say about it. I mean, that's the stuff I like when the show does those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of these shows would benefit greatly from focusing more on the fun episodic stuff instead of getting into the plot.
And they do finally, at the very end, post-credits, remind us that, the handler guy has been hired to kill them. And it's almost the exact same thing where we left off the episode before, where he's like looking at a picture of them, and they're like, yeah, you got to kill him, don't forget. And it's like, okay, well, we just did not acknowledge that for one whole episode, but sure.
That just kind of seems like a sequencing problem, right? Like, if you just put this episode earlier in the sequence, then you avoid the problem entirely.
And I don't know what happened. Maybe something happened when they had to do the recap episode that messed things up. I don't know. It was a little weird. That they just like, because the dark hair guy knows they're coming to kill him, like, because he like basically left, like he abandoned the thing. So like the fact that he doesn't like try to do something to like get everybody to safety or whatever is very weird to me. So on the one hand, it was a fun episode on its own. On the other hand, it was weird how it kind of fit in the grand scheme of things. But other than that, it was just the one episode, so not too much more to say. And yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, they're going to have to get back to the serious stuff at some point. So we'll see. All right. Well, G, I'm assuming you were alluding to High Card.
Yeah, don't worry, Jill. High Card got ahead of you there and was like, what if we just started the serious plot now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, last time we were saying we felt like we were trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
We had the silliness of the episode with them holding hands for the whole episode and fun times all around. And then they're like, no, we're going to burn down an orphanage.
I cannot believe they literally burned down an orphanage in this show.
Ridiculous.
And like, that should be hilarious. Like that,
right,
that's what drives me crazy about this, right?
There's a way to sell this where it's like, haha, we're burning down the orphanage.
Right.
I can't believe they played like little bullied orphan boy completely 100% straight.
It's so I can't believe the show, man. Marble Dude comes back and it's not even that good.
Yes.
Yep.
Although I will say that his costume that looks like he's a chicken drumstick who's been dunked in gravy, pretty good.
Yeah, I still don't understand that.
I
but
still don't understand the intent of his
could
suit.
get a new suit, or I don't know, but yeah,
it kind of sucks because it's just like it's doing all the things that we feared would happen, right? Like it's like that these shows always do, right? Of the middle episodes are fun and episodic and having a good time, and then now it's episode 8 or 9. It's time for the plot to begin, and it's like, does it really?
And it's like it's not like they spent a lot of time building up to this, other than like kind of vaguely alluding to Finn was an orphan or whatever, and that he was sending money back to the orphanage. But we've never seen any like connection to that or any like. Well, we don't, or at least not enough to where we actually feel.
More confusingly, we get confirmation that episode that Finn is not sending money to the orphanage,
or was saving money to send to them
to
or something,
do it,
right?
but had not actually done it yet, which is like,
whatever,
right?
It's
a little strange.
There's a whole like wacky.
Go ahead, Iro.
Like, there's a whole sequence where like Chris has to give Finn the pep talk or whatever, right? And about like, because I'm your buddy. When
was that in the first or the second episode?
That was the second episode.
They kind of blend together.
Okay, yeah,
they're all kind of
like
hand in hand. But yeah,
speaking to the problems we've been talking about, it's like they didn't spend any time building up that relationship. So it's like it just comes out of nowhere.
Right? It's like, are you good friends? Like, I don't know. Like the show has, The show has.
I mean, you held hands for a day and ate beans out of a can. I don't know if that makes you best friends, but
like it is the promise of the ED is failed by the show itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like these people are not actually comrades. Like they are at best friendly coworkers.
I mean, a bunch of them have not. Like the other three have barely appeared. Like,
Like I continue to be confused how every character got their focus episode except Plant Guy apparently.
Right.
But it's just the show is not equipped to like become more serious, but this is what we're doing now, right? Like, the second episode, right? Like, oh, Finn's like in depression mode because he found out the truth that he wasn't
Berserker from Fate Zero killed his parents.
Yeah, basically, right? And
I can't take it seriously because of that. He looks exactly like Berserker.
It's very silly, and it's like. Yeah, it just doesn't really work, right? And
and they're I think they're trying to build it as some kind of thing where he's the prince, right?
I think so. Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely the implication.
Which I don't care at all.
Yeah,
like not the slightest bit.
Then we meet like two more of the Lupin assassin baddies, right? And like. Mm-hmm. They have the least interesting bad guy powers I've ever seen.
Like they're
one is like, haha, I can metal bend, but I do it in the most boring way imaginable. And the other guy's like, I can throw really big rocks.
Uh-huh.
And I have a cool beard.
Yes. And it's like, really? Like, at least, because the thing is, at least with marble, dude, marble is turning things into marbles is just a fun, messed up power, right? Like,
and it's also
Right.
visually spectacucular to be
Yeah,
like throwing
like-
these like supersonic marbles or
Like-
whatever.
metal and earth, like, really, dude? Like, that's that's all you got, huh?
It's dull. Yeah.
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 I think that's the big problem. It's just kind of dull. Like,
Yeah.
like it's not goofy or campy enough to be a comedy, and it's not trying to be one. But like, it's not interesting or serious enough to be like a drama. And
It's not cool enough to be cool.
yeah, like it's not cool enough to like skate by purely on the strength of the action. And I kind of hate everyone in this show as well. Like,
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. Well,
like especially
Um,
Finn and Chris. Like they're just so generic.
yeah, there's nothing like
like
there's nothing like
No
special
hook,
about their
yeah.
It
personality
just
or
sucks
anything. Yeah.
because, like,
even their
there-
powers are boring. Like,
Well, that's the thing. There is potential, right? And I think that's the thing that makes it disappointing, right? Like, I keep thinking back to the joke when their hands are stuck together, where Chris is like, he grabs a steak knife and he's like, "All right, fuck it, let me try this." Right?
Right.
And it's like-
Cut his arm off.
He
Yeah.
can do that because he can regenerate, and it's like, I'm so surprised this show gave us a character who specifically cannot be killed and did not play more into like black physical comedy.
give
with
us a
it, right?
sequence where, like, to get through an air vent or something, he has to cut his head off or something.
Right,
Like that,
like,
you know?
I wanted the like they're at like the top floor of a skyscraper and the bad guy is like running out the lobby and he's just like, all right, I'll see you guys in like 5 minutes, and just like jumps off the side.
yeah.
Right? like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not that's the thing. I don't think his power is a boring power. It can actually be a really funny power if
No,
used well.
You're absolutely right, but it is presented in an extremely boring
Yes,
manner.
that is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we're so deep into this at this point. I don't think
Yeah.
we're gonna.
We might
see
as well
a
ride
turnaround.
it out, but you know,
It
has
I mean,
its
we'll ride it out,
moments,
but you know, the kind of glimpses of fun we had last time, I just think that's going to be.
Yeah.
We're not going to see. That's not the norm, right? That's
I
going
don't
to be the exception.
Maybe
But-
Wendy will do something problematic again.
Also, like I
We can only
keep
hope.
coming back to like the plot of the latest episodes is like, oh, you know, the Klondike family is stepping it up, so now we need to retrieve all the cards that have a known location. I'm like, you didn't fucking do this already. You're agents of the state. Just like
Yeah, good point.
requisition them. Like,
Yeah, like,
literally
wait.
just go in there with a warrant. What the hell?
Yeah.
It's stolen
I mean,
property. Like,
it's like the very weird thing, right? Of like, oh, well, there's only 5 of us, and it's like, yeah, but like,
Right. It's like they want it to be like the secret agent thing, except then you
It's
also
not.
it
Yeah.
doesn't
also,
work.
but you're right. Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, oh, there's only 5 of us, but also, isn't this like a matter of like national security?
yeah.
Like, you can't get
Right.
more budget for more secret agents.
Yeah.
Also, like all like it means they're cops, and like it's
Well,
kind of
yes.
hard to root for cops.
I mean, this is the thing at the end of the day of this style of story, right? Is
Yeah.
like, you either have to be, you know, an arm of the state, or you have to be like, you know, gray market like individuals, right? Like Blood Blockade Battlefront, where it's like, are they criminals? Not
They're a
necessarily.
peacekeeping organization.
Yeah,
Yeah. Something like that.
you know.
They're
no, the show does
they're
have the actual cops.
but they're not like part
Yeah.
of the state. They're just
Right.
independent.
The
That's
show
what I
does
mean.
have
Like,
the-
it's like,
I don't know.
The
They're
show does have the
vigilantes,
actual
yeah.
cops,
Right. Yes.
which
They're all
we
like
did-
mech
we did-
suits, right?
Well, we did
can't
get another
talk-
appearance.
Yeah.
oh, you're talking about
did-
Blood Blockade Battlefront.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Joe's
Yeah,
still talking about
Oh,
High
my
Guard.
bad.
I'm still actually talking about High Card. 'Cause we did get the appearance of the overzealous detective lady, and
All
Yeah.
She's
which
still out
adds
there.
nothing to the plot whatsoever.
Like her character
Yeah,
is
it's
really
just-
weird because like what was the point of that episode where she gets traumatized by discovering the truth when she hasn't been relevant since?
Yeah.
Yeah,
doesn't
she
do
shows up like once in this episode to be like, "I will find the truth" or whatever, and I'm like, nobody cares.
Sure,
not
whatever.
doing anything, not adding anything.
Mm-hmm.
So just disappointing
Ugh.
all around, wasted
Yes.
potential,
Yep.
blah blah blah. I'm not going to say speaking of wasted potential, but let's go to
Oh, I was about to say that, but that's fine. But
Trigun Stampede. I stopped watching, so you guys can say whatever you want. So, Trigun Stampede, how are we looking on that?
It's
Hero?
sort of collapsing, I feel
The
like.
only people I have seen talking about Trigun are like the people who are shipping Vash and Knives furiously together. Like that is
it's the 90s all over again.
Yeah, but like that is the only group of people I know who are like still into Trigun Stampede. As far as
I'm seeing less and less people talking
Yeah.
about it for sure.
I would
Less
say
and
to your
less
point,
to
Zig.
talk about. I don't know. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that would almost make sense because, boy, well, actually, no, it does. I was about to say the anime really ratchets up the Knives Vash stuff, but the manga does that by the end too. So I would actually say that's par for the course for Trigun.
Sure.
But Iro, as you were saying,
Right. It's like we get to July for this thing, and it's just like we start having stuff sort of just happens, and then people move on, and then something else happens in a really like sort of disjointed way,
yes,
where I'm like, because it's like Vash and Wolfwood show up in July, and like then the cops are coming after them or whatever, right? And they get chased for a while, and Wolfwood's like, I'm gonna kill all of these guys, and Vash says, don't shoot them, and then one of them shoots Vash, and then all the cops just walk away.
What?
Yeah,
and Vash and Knives crawl into the sewer or whatever.
Wolfwood, right.
Yeah, sorry. Actual Wolfwood.
It gets very confusing because the thing that I think what's actually happening is the people working on this show realized, oh crap, there is a checklist of things you are supposed to do in a Trigun story. And we have not hit all of them yet. So now we need to cram like 6 of them into this episode. But we're not going to do any of the work to tie them together in like an organic or sensible way.
Yeah.
Because like the whole point of that scene where Vash gets shot is so that we can do the famous scene where Vash takes his shirt off. And you see all of his like really gross looking scars and like cybernetic implants over the years of like, the whole idea, right? Like Vash has lived a long and hard life, right? Like he has been hurt by so many people in his like quest to like protect the human race. And, Wolfwood is meant to be there to be like, are those scars worth it? Like, was it worth like enduring this much pain and suffering?
Except it's just like they just like drop it and say, "Here you go. Let's move on to this other thing."
Right, that's the thing. They just kind of show very matter of factly.
Yeah.
Like, and then we just move on to the next important scene that the story feels like it has to cover.
Yeah, it's like Meryl and Roberto who got kidnapped by.
I was going to say, is he still alive?
Not by the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And guess
Finally.
what he does? He gives his Derringer to Meryl, as we all called like 8 episodes ago. And like that's the other thing, like stuff like that doesn't hit either because it was so obvious what was going to happen that like, yeah, no shit, this dude was gonna die. Like,
and it's not like they spent. I mean, I don't feel like they even got a lot of screen time to begin with, and like I didn't care about that guy. I mean, like. I didn't feel like invested in his character or anything. Like
it's even worse than that because since he's replacing a fan favorite character in Millie, arguably they have to overcompensate and give him they have to endear him to the audience even more, and they would have had to have done extra.
He was
work.
Just like he was just like stereotypical crusty old guy. That gets, but he only got like one line one or 2 lines an episode, right? Like it's not even
and
like
it's
he was
really weird because
like the character,
like his role is basically to be the cynic to Meryl's idealist, right?
Right.
But the problem is that in the original work, that's just Wolfwood's job, right? Wolfwood is just the party cynic. He is and so it's like you have 2 characters who are trying to like out cynic each other, right?
Right.
It just doesn't really work.
I mean, Meryl and Millie are more like the Greek chorus in the original.
Yes,
They're kind of like the audience surrogate to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's like, they introduce another member of the Gung Ho Guns. I can't really get into the details of this character because it would just require too much like explanation. But just the adaptation of that character in this show is very weird. And I don't mean that just in they changed it and it's bad, but like this character is like very, very important in the original story, and it almost just feels like, oh shit, yeah, that character has to show up here. Okay, well, here they are.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that fight's over. All right, we got to move on to the next plot point. And it's like, wait, what? Like,
Yep.
Oh, okay. Like, barely spent any time with that character. And it's the thing of, like, again, I'm not just saying that it's bad because, oh, they changed it, but it's like they introduce a character, they appear for like 2 minutes, and then they're
Right.
gone again. And if you're someone who's not familiar with the source material, you probably just go, why was that character even
Right. It's like
introduced in the
they're
first
just
place?
they're trying to like establish that Knives is working on a way to create more plants or something,
Yes.
and then they just move on.
And it's like they're so concerned about like fast forwarding to the final confrontation between Vash and Knives that every other part of the plot suffers as a result.
Yeah.
Which is weird because, like, again, I've only seen the old anime, so I can't speak to the manga, but, like, Trigun is very much a journey, not destination thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, look, like, I know there's some people who are, like, really into the Knives Vash conflict. I mean, I said when we talked about this show in the beginning that I never thought Knives was the most interesting character. I stand by that, you know. So, like, the fact that they're kind of just sidelining all, like, the weird Western, like, tomfoolery shit to get to, like, the sci-fi stuff is not encouraging to me.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't...
As you say, yeah, like, I can confirm, like, this show has not cracked a joke in, like,
Yeah.
5 episodes.
That was probably the number one reason I dropped it. It was so deadly serious after a couple episodes, and I'm like, and I just did not care. And I'm like, you promised me in the beginning, like the first episode has some fun in it. Like, you
Yes.
promised me that this was going to be fun, and I am having no fun right now. And it sounds like that's just continuing as they're trying to hit all the plot points, right? So
Yeah.
Well,
It's a shame.
it begs the question once again of like, who is this thing for? But
Yeah.
That's the
know.
thing that I struggle with because I'm increasingly convinced this show was made exclusively for people who are fans of the original, because these plot points are like, they're incomprehensible to someone who hasn't even read the manga, but even to someone who has, it elevates them to like parsable. Like,
like that kind of makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
like, and
right.
it's so weird because like they'll drop a name, and I as a manga reader will go, "Oh fuck, that's him," and then they'll just move on. They won't explain who that guy is. They won't say why that name is important. They're just like, "My name is so and so." And
I mean,
they'll
that,
just kind
that
of
might work if you're planning for like a 7-season American.
yeah, like
TV,
maybe,
but,
but it's like, and they'll hang a beat just long enough that I think they want you to like go, oh man, it's him.
it's
but
the guy.
It's like that doesn't work for new viewers, and the
Yeah.
changes they've made to the plot don't really work for old viewers, old fans either. It's yeah,
You see, it's kind of caught in a no man's land. Aha!
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
Well,
we'll finish, but
maybe I should have gone with the speaking of disappointments or whatever intro. I don't know, but yeah, that's too bad because they're trying so hard to make it look nice and everything, and just going to waste.
Yeah, I mean, on a technical level, Orange continues to do what they do best.
Mhm. just
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, maybe that's enough for
All right.
some people, you know. Maybe
Yeah.
like, I want the thing I remember to look pretty now. Maybe that's enough, but...
Yeah, I don't know. All right, well, I think that'll do it for this episode then. So we'll wrap up with our housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com, where you can read both Ira's review of Witch on the Holy Night / Mahoyo and Zig's post about the new Sentai show, which I'm not going to try to say again.
I am going to try and write a review for Metroid Prime Remastered as well, but that might take a bit.
Okay. Well, not currently on the blog as of us recording, but keep an eye out for that. And you can follow us on Twitter, still at the GLORIO blog, and on co-host at GLORIO. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, all those good things. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch up next time.
Love and peace.